Hello, UBL VGC fans. My name is Winda, coach of the Everton Espeons, and this season of UBL Season 13, I am actually going to be making content around my season for the Dawn Division. So yeah, I'm really excited to be putting out some content on time, because this will be on time, unlike my main channel. I swear. So, those who don't know me, maybe not new to the UBL, my name's Winda. I've been playing since the first season. I've won a couple times, I've done okay over the what, 3 years we've been doing this? Close to 4 now. And I've made some amazing friends while playing Draft, and yeah, I'm just excited to be doing this. I've been making content on my channel for Draft for, this entire time. But over time I've made the decision to, while I want to still upload and make the content on my own channel, youtube.com/WindaGaming, of course, those tend to go a lot more in depth, and as a result I like to wait until the season is over. So for this video, and the upcoming videos on the UBL VGC channel, these will be more of the meat and potatoes. These will be the more brief explanations about the matchup and what I think about it before getting right into the live commentator battle, unless it's post-com for some reason. For this video, we're going to be going a bit into my team that I end up drafting, and why I end up shooting those Pokemon. So, I'm going to be trying to keep most of the videos around half an hour or so, because videos on my own channel get very, very long, so, these will be the more condensed versions that will be uploaded on time, and then once the season is over, I'll be uploading the much more in-depth thoughts about each matchup, as well as the battle that will follow once the season has finished. So you get double the Winda content, and actually some of it on time, so that's always great. So as for my team, it's going to be my draft analysis, and we're going to be going in tier order. So, to start things off with my S tier, my S tier is Ursaluna. Not Ursaluna Blood Moon specifically, actually, it is regular Ursaluna. Ursaluna Blood Moon was an S plus tier, while Ursaluna was an S, which was kind of why I wanted it more. Means I could still get that A pick instead of having to sacrifice it for a B pick. And my A picks are really important, I kind of needed them. So, yeah, Ursaluna's a great Pokemon. It's an incredibly threatening Trick Room Sweeper that still sees play even today in Reg G. Despite just doing Reg F format, Reg G still sees base Ursaluna having success on certain teams. And it's not hard to see why. 140 attack with Guts, Flame Orb, and Facade, with Stab, combine that with either Headlong Rush or High Horsepower, really does make this thing a force to be reckoned with. One of the best Trick Room one of the best Trick Room Sweepers of the generation, and is incredibly bulky as well. The base 80 special defense isn't super great, but it can be bulked out, especially given the fact that it's got 130 HP and 105 defense. You can really bulk this thing out and make it do what you need to. As well as having enough coverage to hit things that maybe don't take as much from those hits, like Steel Flying types, for example. Don't really care about this thing's door stab, so you've got the things like Fire Punch to help take those down a little bit easier, or Supercell Slam, Thunder Punch. There's a lot of different coverage this thing can get, as well as fighting coverage, which is a grand. So, has some setup options as well. It won't really need to set up a lot of the time to take out a lot of the threats in this format, but it has the option to do so. And also really doesn't need to run Guts Flame Orb every week, and that's something I'm really hoping to try out this season, because in Season 11, I ended up drafting Hariyama, another very prominent Guts Flame Ball Pokemon, but I only ever ran Guts Flame Ball once during that season. I brought Guts a couple times, but I really never ran Guts Flame Orb, and I'm wondering if Ursaluna can do something similar. Obviously, Hariyama had a lot more utility as well, but I still think AV Guts just to disincentivize burns, or even maybe a Clear Amulet, so it can't even be intimidated, and stop its immense damage output. Sacrifice some damage output for the consistent damage that it could do. So yeah, I'm really excited to use Ursaluna. Never used it before. Most of the Pokemon I ended up drafting I haven't used before in draft, so I'm really excited to see how they do. Now, part of the reason why I picked Ursaluna was, despite it being my last pick, because everyone else picked their S tiers before me, I didn't really need to pick mine until the end at that point, was because of my first pick, which was Spectrier, a recently demoted A tier, and demoted is kind of a bad way of putting it, because this thing got a massive upgrade as a result. Because of the fact that our S tiers are not allowed to terrestrialize, Spectrier really wasn't doing a whole lot in S tier, but with it going down to A tier and having the ability to be terrestrialized, this Demon Horse can really put on a show. Super high base speed, which already gives us a really high base speed to start with, amazing special attack, decent HP as well. The 100 HP kind of makes it so its mediocre defenses can be bulked out a bit, so, but for the most part it's still going to be wanting that speed. And with the combination of its ability to boost special attack, a nasty plot or Calm Mind to boost its special attack, and this thing can snowball out of control almost immediately. Give this thing the opportunity to just get up one of those stat boosts and it will ruin days. Really doesn't have great coverage, which is one of the reasons why it was kind of struggling in the S tier, but with now its ability to terrestrialize along with Draining Kiss and then its Snap Shadow Balls, it really has all it needs to do to really sweep through teams. Just needs that bit of support to get there, but that's why I ended up drafting the support to do so. Not only that, it has some supporting capabilities. I think the most notable ones are Taunt and Will-O-Wisp, which are quite nice. Means that it can shut down some physical attackers if the prospect of it sweeping isn't really a possibility. But it can easily turn into that sweeper if it just accidentally gets a kill because of Grimnay. So, Grimnay, very stupid ability, and I'm really hoping I get to show off how powerful Spectrier of a Pokemon truly is in this season. Or at least, that I think it is. I haven't drafted this. I've drafted this in singles, but I haven't drafted it in VGC, so I'm really excited. Pairing with this, for a second A tier using our 3 points, I ended up grabbing Clefable. Now, Spectrier Clefairy was a prominent VGC duo back in Generation 8, despite Spectrier's lack of coverage, but, you know, Dynamax is a thing. Not anymore. We got Terrestrialization, and still giving it some redirection support is great. Prefer Clefable over Clefairy because it can hold an item instead of having to run an Eviolite all the time. So it can run Recovery Berries, or Mental Herb, or Covert Cloak to make sure that Clefable is doing its redirecting job as well as possible. A little bit less bulk as a result, and the no Friend Guard, instead it's got Unaware, which is still a very solid ability, don't get me wrong. Means anything trying to boost to one-hit KO the Clefable and take it out as quickly as possible isn't really able to do so. Magic Guard is always great as well. It means that just any passive damage isn't going to be doing anything. If it gets, you know, caught by a Will-O-Wisp when Follow Meing, that's great, it doesn't care. So, yeah, solid Pokemon overall. Its main utility is Follow Me, one of the highest tier Follow Me users we have in the format. As well as having some other decent utility moves, things like Encore, notably Helping Hand, as well as being able to do quite decent damage. Those who know me quite well know that I do like even my supporting Pokemon to at least do some respectable damage, especially on a type such as important as Fairy. Fairy, one of the best types in draft due to its, you know, lack of resistances. So and with a Life Orb and Magic Guard, it can do pretty reasonable damage, especially with the coverage that it has. Being a prior normal type means it just got Flamethrower, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt. All the coverage it could really ask for. So it can be the offensive mon as well, and at 60 speed, it's not super fast. Like, it's only a little bit faster than Ursaluna. So it could do the damage it needs to in Trick Room, if needs be, which is really, really nice. So overall, really excited to use Clefable. Surprisingly, I don't think I've drafted this either. So yeah, I'm really excited to use Clefable and see how things go with this Pokemon. Next up for our final A tier, which is, again, with 3 points, I ended up grabbing Zapdos. Now, originally in this slot, I actually wanted to grab some form of faster Tailwinding. But things like Noivern, Ribombee, and Kilowattrel all went before I could realistically grab them. I ended up grabbing this a little bit later because I ended up prioritizing my Trick Room setup first because I was going to pick up Ursaluna. I needed to make sure I had good Trick Room. So, in the end, I ended up going with Zapdos. Not the fastest Tailwind setter. Only base 100 speed, which is weird to say nowadays, but yeah, 100 base speed isn't best on the Tailwind setter, but it's fairly bulky with that 90, 85, 90 spread on HP defense and special defense, as well as 125 special attack. People sometimes just forget how much damage Zapdos does. I mean, if you played back in, what was it, oh my goodness, I can't remember the name of the DLC. The Calyrex DLC, you know the one I'm on about. It was Isle of Armor, and it was... Keep wanting to say Indigo Disc, but it's not Indigo Disc. Crown Tundra, there we go. Crown Tundra format in Sword and Shield. Zapdos was actually a pretty prominent Dynamax Pokemon, and did a lot of damage with max Airstreams and Lightnings, so... but otherwise, it's a very reliable Tailwind setter. Last season, I actually had another Pokemon like that in Suicune. A very reliable Tailwind setter, and Zapdos is very similar in that with a decent bulk, but also great damage output. Especially, even uninvested, it's like main 3 offensive moves between Thunderbolt, Heat Wave, and Hurricane/Air Slash if I don't want to miss, and then still miss anyway. Still give this thing really good offensive potential in hitting a lot of different types for respectable to really good damage. This also gives me Discharge Earthquake, which is a really nice combination to just have access to with the Ursaluna as a partner. As well as having some utility, things like Eerie Impulse is not bad, potential weather moves, as well as Thunder Wave to slow things down. It's not the fastest Pokemon to really use some of those moves, but it's still a very solid Pokemon that has proven its worth over the years in generation after generation. Not been as good in Generation 9, hasn't really seen a lot of play, but let's hope that Power Creep hasn't completely ruined this bird and clipped its wings. I have faith, though, in Zapdos. I think it's a very, very solid, versatile, and reliable Pokemon. Next up, going into our B tiers, I mentioned I ended up grabbing a Trick Room setter quite early, and I certainly did. Clefable and Spectro were my first and second picks, though Spectro was first and Clefable was second. This ended up being my third pick, and basically what I sacrificed my Tailwind setters to get, and that is Reuniclus. I wanted a very solid Trick Room setter that I felt was very reliable at doing so, but also did a lot of damage. Again, going back to that base 125 special attack stat, still can do a lot of damage, especially with the Magic Guard similar to Clefable. I'd say this one is a lot more likely to do it, I think, rather than Clefable trying to do damage. Reuniclus can really do the damage. As well as having Overcoat, which means it is immune to Rage Powder and Spore, notably, which is really nice. It's a great Pokemon into Amoonguss as a result of especially being that Psychic typing, and Regenerator can be quite useful as well. After it takes a hit, you know, get it on out of there, bring in something else, and go from there. As I say, it's relatively bulky. The lower defenses and 75 and 85 on the defense and special defense isn't super ideal, but with that massive 1 at 10 HP, it can be bulked out to take hits quite easily. And notably, that super low speed in base 13 means we got something quite slow in Trick Room, speed tying Amoonguss. It doesn't have the best of coverage, sadly. Notably, it's just going to be using a Psychic type move and then one coverage move for the most part, though that coverage move could be Terra Blast if I think terroring this Pokemon is worth it. But the most reliable coverage moves it does get are unfortunately Shadow Ball and Energy Ball. Otherwise, it's going to have to be relying on some very inaccurate moves such as Thunder and Focus Blast, which is quite sad. But for the most part, because unfortunately this is going to end up being our only Trick Room setter, it coming to games is mostly going to be something it's going to have to be using Trick Room, but doesn't have to in general. It's a very bulky Pokemon that can do good damage, but it might be forced into using Trick Room a lot of the time, which is the only thing I'm kind of worried about with it. But either way, wouldn't be the first time I've drafted a single Trick Room setter and then brought it to every game, just having the option to set Trick Room. I did this with Bronzong a few seasons back, had that as my only Trick Room setter, and then just brought it every single week, had the option to set Trick Room if I thought it was right in the matchup, and it worked out really, really well. And I think Reuniclus could do something very, very similar. Really excited to try out Reuniclus. I think this is going to be the Trick Room setter for the team that really helps it out and enables some of our slower Pokemon to shine. Next up, our second B tier and only other B tier is going to be Tauros Paldea Aqua. I really am a fan of the Tauros forms. I think they're very solid, sturdy Pokemon that just provide the team with decent utility but also good offensive damage output. Water Fighting is a great typing, as shown by Urshifu this generation. Pretty solid stats across the board, less bulky on the special defense side, but 105 defense combined with that 75 HP makes it pretty reasonably bulky, especially combined with Intimidate. Intimidate is the main support that Tauros offers for the team, and then just being able to do really good damage. It's got a lot of great coverage options, as well as having access to priority, but it doesn't really have any great utility outside of that. But Intimidate is still amazing support for a team, making it so it's bulking it not only itself out, but also the partner, which is great. Forcing cleared amulets in some matchups, which is grand. And just as I say, I really think the Tauros forms provide solid, sturdy, reliable Pokemon that really can come to any matchup. Similar to Zapdos in that case, I think both of these Pokemon are quite just reliable and aren't really bad in many matchups. So, excited to see what Tauros can do. There's a Pokemon I've drafted before that feels very similar, and that is Crocodile, where Crocodile doesn't have a lot of utility. It has a couple more things, I should say, like Taunt. But the main utility it provides as a Pokemon is Intimidate. And Tauros, Water Tauros, as I'm just going to call it because the whole name is way too long. Water Tauros kind of does the same thing, where it provides some defensive utility with Intimidate, but also can deal really respectable damage with that Full Stab combination and the coverage options it does get. So, it does have Could Chew and Anger Point. I don't know how often I'm going to be using either of those. We'll see, though. But I think Tauros can do a lot of work here. Moving into our C tiers, we got 3 of them total. 2 that were obviously aligned to us, and then assigned to us, and then the one I ended up picking up with 3 points. So, starting off with a Pokemon I ended up picking up relatively early in terms of C tiers, and that is Salazzle. So, I definitely wanted some other speed on this team, and that 117 speed is really nice to bridge the gap between Zapdos and Spectra. I really like my speed tiers. And yeah, I think Salazzle is a really solid Pokemon. It's got its fake out pressure for the team, which is great, and can do really good damage. This is kind of a type of Pokemon I've defined as offensive support, where it kind of has 1 to 2 really defined supporting roles, such as, fake out here, but then just starts hitting things really hard. And with that, 111 special attack seems a little on the lower side, especially compared to things like Zapdos and Reuniclus and Spectra. But its Doorstep combination hits a lot of types for a lot of damage between fire and poison. Some okay coverage, but not really. I mean, it's Dragon, which is, I guess, fine. But also has some good utility as well, similar to Spectra. It has both Taunt and Will-O-Wisp and Thunder Wave for some reason. I have no idea why this Pokemon gets Thunder Wave. But also things like Fake Tears and Acid Spray to combo with some faster special attackers, and Encore as well, to be very, very annoying, as well as Sable, which is an option as well. And on such a fast Pokemon, it has that ability to be used for utility. The abilities are fine. Corrosion can be clutch in some matchups, but Oblivious is also really nice to prevent it from being taunted, which is grand. Really excited to use Salazzle. It's very, very frail, but there's a lot of Pokemon like this, where it's like has like 1 to 2 really good utility options on such a fast and frail Pokemon, and then starts hitting things. For example, last season I ended up drafting Mienshao, and Mienshao was a great Pokemon. I loved using it, and Salazzle is similar to that in forms of it's a very fast fake-out user, one of the fastest in the format. Only outsped, to my knowledge, by Sneasler and Weavile, and then maybe some weather/terrain stuff as well, because I believe like Unburden, Hitmonlee, things of that nature. But naturally, it's one of the fastest, so gives us that option to have that disruption very early on in a game, and excited to see how it can be used. Next up, something a little bit going back into the slower side, and the only Pokemon so far that I've actually drafted before in VGC, and that is Appleton. Sorry, Gambit, I know you wanted this, but I also love this little guy. So, Grass Dragon means we've finally rounded out our Fire, Water, Grass core, which is great. Its abilities are amazing. 2 of them involving berries, which both are very good. Ripen and Gluttony are amazing. And then Thick Fat to make it so it's not going to get completely nuked by Ice-type moves. Combined with Terra and the classic Iron Defense Body Press set that this thing is mostly known for in VGC, and this thing becomes a pain to take down and become an endgame win condition on its own. A lack of respect for Appleton can really ruin a team and really make it so they don't have a lot for it. The other thing that it's kind of used for, which I used for the first time I ended up drafting this, what was it, Season 6? Was I ended up using it as an offensive Trick Room Sweeper. Even with just Grass Dragon coverage. Grass Dragon is not a bad combination to have, just because of Dragon's quite neutral typing. And 100 special attack isn't super great, but it certainly can do the damage where it needs to. It can have some physical offensive potential as well, because it has better physical coverage in things like High Horsepower and Sucker Punch. I don't think it gets any setup for that though. I think it maybe gets Curse? No? Yes, okay, it does get Curse. And maybe can use that instead as an option, but the fact that it is so bulky and can set up as well as have Recover and Leech Seed means that this Pokemon can be very difficult for teams to take down, and gives me more options to hit those water types that may be troubling for the team otherwise. It's something I do very much like. Our last C tier for the team is going to be Revavroom. Steel types are very important for drafts, and despite this being a double up on poison types, which if people don't know, I'm personally not a fan of trying to double up on types. I really do try to avoid it as much as possible. But I did want a good steel type, and this was kind of the best one that I could really afford at this point. His abilities are certainly not bad, either Overcoat to be immune to Rage Powder or Spore, but also Filter to make it so it takes a little bit less damage. Its stats aren't anything crazy, but it's at least decently bulky on the physical side, less so on the special side, decently fast, and that 119 attack combined with Shift Gear, which is what it's definitely most known for, really can make this a deadly setup sweeper. Something I definitely wanted when I've got a Clefable that provides great redirection support. On top of that, it actually has coverage, unlike at the start of the generation, with now access to high horsepower and temper flare. It can actually hit steel types that previously walled it completely, and can do a lot of damage into those fairy types that otherwise might have been a problem for this team. It has some utility as well, such as Haze and Taunt, as well as being able to pivot around with Parting Shot. So it can perform some potential utility-like role if it wants to, but I'm excited to see how this Pokemon plays out. It might be a lesser used Pokemon on the team for sure, but I think it has the right matchups to perform admirably. Also, why doesn't this car get U-turn? Like, it's got Parting Shot, that's fine, but like, why doesn't it get U-turn? The car. Anyways, going into our D tier, kind of ironic how I said I don't like doubling up on types, because we're going to be doubling up on another type this time around in our D tier, and that is going to be Honchkrow. Another Pokemon I've drafted before, and this is just because of speed tiers. I literally, like a couple seasons ago, I had this thing where I was like, dang, I really need a physical dark type attacker that's kind of in the, like, lower mid speeds, like, and yeah, Honchkrow just kind of does that exactly. With that 125 attack and good HP, it's just its defense is terrible. As well as access to Super Look or Moxie, it can hit really hard. It gets both physical and special offensive moves, which even with its 105 special attack can still do a lot of damage, especially because of the coverage for things like Heat Wave as well. And it also gets access to Tailwind as well as an option. If Zapdos for some reason just looks a lot worse in a matchup, this can do it as well. It also gets Haze, which is great for setup Pokemon, so really excited to give Honchkrow another try. When I used it last time, I only ended up bringing it to 2 games, and one of those was a meme week, so I didn't use Honchkrow all season. I ended up bringing it to team preview and finals with the full intention of actually using it, but unfortunately the matchup wasn't quite right for it, sadly. I really hope to give Honchkrow a good showing, and I hope that this time around it gets a chance to do so. For D tier, I think this is a great Pokemon and has the potential to do a lot of damage and a lot of work for this team. Last but not least, I ended up having to pick up an E tier Pokemon due to how my 3 points lined up, so I ended up grabbing Fletchling, which is still not a bad Pokemon. It has, you know, Gale Wings and Tailwind, which means it does give priority Tailwind to the team, and has about enough damage to break a Focus Sash just barely. That's really all it's got going for it. It's priority Tailwind for a team that does not have a lot of fast Tailwind, Zapdos being its only fast Tailwind. So yeah, Fletchling gives the team a fast Tailwind option if the matchup calls for it. So yeah, that is the team overall. I'm just gonna quickly, where is it? Do this, so you can't see me going through my tabs, because I forgot to pull up the team on the dock so you could see it fully. So, and we are back. There we go. So here it is. This is on the PR's doc that we did, which means you can see all the weaknesses and speed tiers and all that good stuff. I'm a really big fan of this team. It's got some great speed tiers, it's got some great type coverage. If you take out the fact that Fletchling is there, then it's neutral to Ghost and neutral to Electric. It's still weak to Ice and Rock. Actually, no, it's neutral to Rock, isn't it? Yeah, it's neutral to Rock as well. It's really only weak to Ice and Fairy, which is certainly not bad at all. Got a lot of diverse modes and good reliable Pokemon that can fit into a lot of different modes, which is really exciting. Some Pokemon are quite flexible, some are a little bit more one-note, but those one-notes can really decimate teams, and I'm really excited to see how this team does this season. I'm excited to play all these new coaches as well as some old favourites, and that is going to do it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys for this season.